20 best gone groups of the 1960s that have fallen off the radar. Ever find yourself humming a 60s hit and wondering, hey, whatever happened to that band? In this video, we're shining a light on 20 unforgettable groups that once ruled the airwaves, then vanished. From garage rockers to sunshine pop stars, get ready to rediscover the music and the stories you thought were lost to time. Die McCoys. You probably know the song Hang On Sloopy, but have you ever wondered what happened to the band behind it? That would be the McCoys, a scrappy garage band who skyrocketed to number 1 in 1965 with that unforgettable hit. They had the look, the energy, and the sound that mixed gritty rock with a dash of bubblegum pop, making them instant teen favorites. But just as fast as they rose, they slipped out of the spotlight. Still, their story doesn't end there, because from their ashes came a rock guitar legend, Rick Derringer. Like so many groups of the era, the McCoys started as a bunch of high school kids jamming in the suburbs. They were originally called Rick and the Raiders, taking inspiration from the surf rock craze. They gained local traction with a single called You Know That I Love You on the Sonic label, but the real star was frontman Rick Zeringer, who'd soon go by Rick Derringer. His guitar work was fiery, flashy, and way ahead of its time. Their raw talent opened doors, landing them opening gigs for major acts, and sometimes even upstaging the headliners. Hang On Sloopy sealed their spot in 60s rock history, but the band itself didn't stay together long. Rick Derringer went on to carve out a killer solo career in the 70s, becoming one of the era's most respected guitarists. So while the McCoys may have had a short run, they helped launch a career that kept rock and roll blazing for years to come. Starecase. You know that feel-good tune, More Today Than Yesterday? The one you can't help but hum along to? That unforgettable song came from Spiral Staircase, one of the most iconic one-hit wonders of the late 60s. Their big moment came in 1969, and though their time in the spotlight was short, that hit still echoes through the decades on classic oldies radio. The band actually started out under a different name, the Fidalians, and they were doing the local circuit around California. Their big break came in 1967 when record producer Gary Usher, known for his work with the Beach Boys and the Byrds, happened to catch their act in El Monte. He liked what he heard and signed them to Columbia Records. But there was a catch. The name had to go. Inspired by the old movie The Spiral Staircase, they updated it with some groovy 60s flair and became Spiral Staircase. To backstabs. You've heard The Letter, that short, punchy, emotional blast of a song that still hits hard today. But who were the voices behind it? Meet the Box Tops, a Memphis-based band that stormed the charts in 1967 with their raw, soulful sound and a frontman who was barely old enough to vote. The group started out as the DeVilles, playing around their hometown before heading into Chips Moman's American Sound Studio. It was there they laid down The Letter with producer Dan Penn. They changed their name to the Box Tops just before releasing the track, mainly to avoid name clashes with other bands, and the rest is history. The song exploded, climbing to number 1 and holding the spot for 4 weeks. It sold over 4 million copies and earned them a gold record. But they weren't done yet. Their follow-up, Cry Like a Baby, also made waves, hitting number 2 and moving another 2 million records. Between 1967 and 1969, they released 5 albums and 10 singles, making a big splash in a short amount of time. What really made the Box Tops stand out was lead singer Alex Chilton. Just 16 when The Letter was recorded, his gravelly, soulful voice gave the band a gritty Memphis edge that set them apart from other white rock groups of the time. As critics put it, they looked white and sang black, a rare and powerful mix in the late 60s. Peppermint Rainbow. If the tune Will You Be Staying After Sunday brings a smile to your face, then you've already met Peppermint Rainbow, even if you didn't realize it. This Baltimore-based band was part of the sunny, feel-good pop wave that swept through the late 60s. Originally called the New York Times, they started out playing local gigs around the Mid-Atlantic and slowly built a name for themselves. Their big break came in 1968 when talent agent Alan White brought them to New York to audition for producer Paul Leka, the same guy behind hits like Nana, Hey, Hey, Kiss 'Em Goodbye. Leka liked what he heard, signed the group, and gave them a new name, Peppermint Rainbow. It fit their bright, upbeat sound perfectly. Their debut single, Walking in Different Circles, didn't get much traction. But then came Will You Be Staying After Sunday? A breezy, catchy track that cracked the US Top 40, reaching number 32. It did even better on the Cashbox chart and in Canada, climbing to 21 and 19 respectively. Despite that early buzz, the band couldn't quite keep the hits coming. Their moment in the spotlight was brief, and they faded from the charts soon after. Still, Peppermint Rainbow left behind a little slice of the late 60s, a time when sunshine pop ruled the radio, and even one good song could light up the airwaves. DIA Flying Machine. Smile a Little Smile for Me. It's one of those songs that just makes you feel good. But who were the voices behind that 1969 pop gem? That would be The Flying Machine, a British group that carved out their place in music history with one infectious, heartwarming hit. Before they were flying high, some of the band members had played together in another group. Pinkerton's Assorted Colors, best known for their 1966 single Mirror Mirror. Fast forward to 1969, and key members Tony Newman, Sam Kemp, and Stuart Coleman teamed up with guitarist Steve Jones and drummer Paul Wilkinson to create something fresh. With Newman stepping into the spotlight as lead singer, The Flying Machine was born. Their debut single, Smile a Little Smile for Me, quickly took off in the US, climbing to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and hitting number 6 on the Adult Contemporary chart. Its mix of British charm and bubblegum pop struck a chord with American listeners, earning them a spot on radios and jukeboxes across the country. They released an album shortly after, hoping to ride the wave. But follow-up singles didn't catch fire, and the band soon drifted apart. Still, for a brief, shining moment, The Flying Machine gave the world a reason to smile. And their one big hit continues to brighten playlists to this day. Did you ever see any of these groups live back in the day? Tell us what it was like. DZI and DS Amerikaans. Remember the catchy tune, Come a Little Bit Closer? Ever wonder who was behind that hit? That would be Jay and the Americans, a group that got its start back in the late 1950s. The original lineup featured John J. Traynor, along with Howie Kane, Kenny Vance, and Sandy Deane. But things really took off when Jay Black, real name David Blatt, took over lead vocals and Marty Sanders joined the band. That version of the group would go on to make history. In fact, they were inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in 2002. Their first taste of success came in 1962 with She Cried, sung by the original J. John Traynor. It climbed all the way to number 5 on the Billboard charts. But it was Jay Black's powerful voice that led them to their biggest hits, including Only in America, which was actually meant for the Drifters, Come a Little Bit Closer in 1964, and Cara Mia in 1965, both of which became top 5 hits. The group eventually called it quits in 1973. Most of the original members went their separate ways, but Jay Black kept the name alive, touring with new musicians under the same banner. Dia Left Banke. If you've ever heard Walk Away Renee and felt like it had a dreamy, classical feel to it, there's a reason for that. Meet the Left Banke, one of the most distinctive bands of the 60s and the pioneers of what came to be known as Baroque pop. Formed in New York City in 1965, they didn't sound like your average rock group. Their music mixed elegant string arrangements with heartfelt lyrics, giving pop a touch of sophistication. The original lineup featured Michael Brown on keyboards, who also wrote many of their songs, along with George Cameron on drums, Tom Finn on bass, Jeff Winfield on guitar, and Steve Martin on lead vocals. Martin's soaring voice, paired with Brown's lush orchestration, gave the Left Banke their signature sound. Their debut hit, Walk Away Renee, took off in late 1966, reaching number 5 on the Billboard charts and cementing their place in pop history. They followed it with Pretty Ballerina, another standout that made it to number 15. Even though their third single, Desiree, didn't make as big of a splash, the band was clearly onto something special. Unfortunately, internal fighting, money problems, and weak management took their toll. The band broke up by 1968, just as quickly as they had risen. A short reunion in the early 70s to record a few tracks for the film Hot Pants Holiday couldn't keep them together either. AC/DC, if you've ever cranked up a gritty garage rock tune and felt that wild, untamed energy, there's a good chance you were listening to the Seeds. Their standout hit, Pushin' Too Hard, is one of those tracks that captures the raw edge of the 1960s. Hailing from Los Angeles, the Seeds were a bold mix of garage rock and trippy psychedelia. They first came together in 1965, led by the charismatic Sky Saxon on vocals and guitar, with Jan Savage on lead guitar, Daryl Hooper on keyboards, and Rick Andridge on drums. The band got their big break in 1966 when they signed with GNP Crescendo Records. Not long after, they released Pushin' Too Hard, which stormed into the top 40 by early 1967. They followed it up with tunes like Mr. Farmer and Can't Seem to Make You Mine. While those didn't quite match the success of their breakout single, Can't Seem to Make You Mine came pretty close to cracking the top 40. As the decade rolled on, the Seeds leaned deeper into the psychedelic trends that followed Sgt. Pepper, exploring more experimental and art rock sounds. But their later records didn't make much of a splash on the charts, and by the end of the 60s, the band had quietly fizzled out. Des Faux Sins. Ever find yourself singing along to You've Got Your Troubles and wondering who brought that smooth harmony to life? That would be the Fortunes, a British beat group out of Birmingham that made a big splash in the mid-60s with their heartfelt vocals and rich arrangements. Their sound blended pop with tight harmonies, helping them stand out during the height of the British invasion. The band got their start with a track called Summertime, Summertime, which was credited to the Fortunes with the Cliftones. Their follow-up single Caroline didn't chart, but it found unexpected fame as the theme for the pirate radio station Radio Caroline, giving them some underground buzz. Their big breakthrough came with their fifth single, You've Got Your Troubles, in 1965. The song took off, hitting number 2 on the UK charts and cracking the top 10 in both the US and Canada. That launched them into the spotlight, and they followed it up with more hits like Here It Comes Again and This Golden Ring. Later on in the early 70s, they found renewed success with Storm in a Teacup and Freedom Come, Freedom Go. Even though their momentum slowed after those initial hits, the Fortunes' early success carved out a lasting place for them in pop history. Their smooth, harmony-driven sound still turns heads today, and their legacy as one of the great British vocal groups of the 60s lives on with every spin of You've Got Your Troubles. Da Rose Gay Ardasen. Next Plane to London. If you remember that haunting folk rock tune from the late 60s, then you remember The Rose Garden. This Los Angeles-based group didn't stick around for long, but in their brief time on the scene, they made a lasting impression with one unforgettable hit. The band originally came together in 1964 under the name The Blokes. Back then, they were mostly known for covering songs by the Byrds, which makes sense because that jangly, harmony-rich folk rock sound would become their signature too. By 1967, the lineup was locked in, and with a fresh identity, they became the Rose Garden. That same year, they signed with Atco Records and released Next Plane to London. The song quickly gained traction, peaking at number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100 and giving them their moment in the spotlight. Riding the momentum, they released their self-titled debut album in early 1968. Unfortunately, lightning didn't strike twice. Their follow-up songs failed to chart, and trouble soon followed. Internal tensions and the Vietnam-era draft, claiming 2 of their members, cut the band's journey short. By the end of 1968, the Rose Garden had quietly disbanded. Is there a song from the 60s that instantly takes you back to a specific memory? Share your story. De Crazy Wild for Jorther Brown. I am the god of hellfire. If that line rings a bell, then you know Fire by the Crazy World of Arthur Brown. This English rock band didn't just make music, they lit it on fire, literally. With face paint, wild theatrics, and a flaming helmet, frontman Arthur Brown brought something completely different to the stage in 1967, and rock was never the same again. The band's lineup featured Vincent Crane on Hammond organ, Draken Thieker on drums, and Nick Greenwood on bass. Together, they created a sound that was part psychedelic rock, part theatrical performance, built on swirling organ riffs, horns, and Brown's booming operatic vocals. But it was Arthur Brown himself, with his over-the-top persona and stage antics, who stole the spotlight. Their breakout hit Fire came in 1968 and set the world ablaze, figuratively and almost literally. The song topped the charts in the UK and Canada and reached number 2 in the US, selling over 1 million copies and earning a gold disc. Suddenly, this bizarre, flamboyant band was playing alongside rock royalty like The Who, Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, and The Small Faces. But with great fire comes burnout. The intense stage show and internal tensions made it hard to keep the act together. The band eventually fizzled, but Arthur Brown's impact lived on. From Alice Cooper to Kiss to Marilyn Manson, his influence on theatrical rock runs deep. Beau Brummels. Ever hear Laugh Laugh and assume it was by a British band? You're not alone. That was the Beau Brummels, one of the first American groups to ride the wave of the British invasion, with a sound so convincing folks thought they were from across the pond. But nope. They came straight out of San Francisco, forming in 1964 with a blend of folk rock and pop that turned heads and caught ears. Their music was sharp, catchy, and heartfelt. Early hits like Laugh Laugh and Just a Little stood toe-to-toe with the Beatles and the Stones, and they had help from a rising star behind the scenes. Producer Sylvester Stewart, better known later as Sly Stone. His touch gave their early singles a cool, polished vibe that still feels fresh. The Beau Brummels were ahead of their time, helping define what American folk rock would become. But their run wasn't without trouble. Poor management and lackluster promotion held them back, and things got even harder when lead guitarist and main songwriter Ron Elliott began struggling with multiple sclerosis. These setbacks led to frequent breakups and reunions over the years. Still, their music made an impact. And if you need proof they were part of the cultural fabric of the 60s, look no further than the Flintstones. Yep, Laugh Laugh showed up in the episode Shinrock A Go-Go, bringing their sound straight into America's living rooms. Classics FOR. Ever get chills when you hear that eerie sax and spooky? That smooth, haunting groove came from none other than Classics 4, a soft rock band that quietly carved out their own place in music history during the late 60s. Formed in 1965 in Jacksonville, Florida, the group was led by drummer-turned-frontman Dennis Yost, and became known for a string of mellow, jazz-tinged hits that are still staples on oldies playlists. The band got its start as the Classics, playing instrumental covers of surf rock bands like The Ventures. The name? Inspired by the classic brand of drum kit Yost used. He played standing up, which made him stand out. At first, they were all about the instruments, until fans started asking for vocals. That's when Dennis stepped up to the mic, changing the group's path for good. Their first single, Pollyanna, written by Joe South, had a Four Seasons vibe, but it didn't break big. And with another band already using the name The Classics, they added 4 to make it their own. Between 1967 and 1969, Classics 4 found their groove and their audience. Spooky climbed to number 3, followed by Stormy at number 5, and Traces hit number 2. These hits blended soft pop with a jazzy, emotional edge, and Dennis Yost's voice gave it all a signature sound. But like many groups of the time, the hits slowed down, the lineup shifted, and their time at the top faded. Still, those 3 songs, Spooky, Stormy, and Traces, cemented their legacy. Smooth, soulful, and just a little mysterious, Classics 4 left behind a sound you don't forget. Da Buckinghams. Kind of a drag. You've probably heard that upbeat tune with the brassy hook. But who were the guys behind it? That would be the Buckinghams, a band born out of the Chicago music scene in 1965, right in the middle of the British invasion. Ironically, they weren't British at all, but they sure sounded like they could have been. The band featured Carl Giammaresi, Nick Fortuna, John Poulos, Dennis Tufano, and Dennis Mickley. Their big break came when they won a local Battle of the Bands competition on a Chicago TV show. That victory landed them a 2-week TV gig and gave them just enough momentum to chase something bigger. Wanting to ride the British trend, they chose the name the Buckinghams to give themselves that UK flair. They started out with regional success on USA Records, mostly with cover tunes, but it wasn't until they dropped Kind of a Drag in 1966 that things exploded. The song shot to #1 on the national charts and sold over 1 million copies. That smash hit landed them a deal with Columbia Records, where they followed up with songs like Lottie Miss Claudie and the top 10 hit Don't You Care. By 1967, the Buckinghams were regulars on national TV. The Ed Sullivan Show, American Bandstand, you name it. More hits followed. Mercy, 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 and Hey Baby, They're Playing Our Song, kept them riding high. But by 1968, the magic started to fade. Their album, In One Ear and Gone Tomorrow, didn't produce any big hits, and internal changes took a toll. By 1970, the original run of the Buckinghams came to an end. Still, their catchy pop rock sound, brass-heavy arrangements, and polished harmonies left a lasting mark on 60s music, and Kind of a Drag is anything but. The T-Bones. Ever hear the groovy instrumental No Matter What Shape, Your Stomach's In, and wonder who cooked it up? That would be the T-Bones. Well, sort of. The real story behind this quirky 60s hit is as unusual as the song itself. The T-Bones weren't a traditional band at all. They were actually a group of elite studio musicians from Los Angeles, part of the legendary Wrecking Crew, working under the Liberty Records label between 1965 and 1966. The Wrecking Crew played on some of the biggest hits of the era, and No Matter What Shape, Your Stomach's In started as a clever instrumental based on, you guessed it, an Alka-Seltzer commercial jingle. It was catchy, weird, and oddly irresistible. In 1966, it climbed to #3 on the Billboard Hot 100, turning a TV ad into a pop sensation. But here's where it gets even stranger. The Wrecking Crew musicians who recorded the hit weren't interested in touring. They were already making solid money in the studio. So Liberty Records scrambled to put together a live version of the T-Bones, a completely different group of musicians, to tour and appear on TV. These guys had nothing to do with the original hit or the follow-up album, Sippin' and Chippin'. Though they did go on to record the band's final LP, Everyone's Gone to the Moon and Other Trips. After the curtain closed on the T-Bones, a few members of the touring lineup, Dan Hamilton, Joe Frank Carollo, and Tommy Reynolds, would go on to real fame in the 70s as the soft rock trio Hamilton, Joe Frank, and Reynolds. The T-Bones may have been a studio project more than a true band, but their one big hit still stands out as one of the most memorable toe-tapping oddities of 1960s pop. Thank you for watching. To continue with more content, comment yes to let us know you're still following. Cyrkle. Ever hear Red Rubber Ball and wonder who was behind that bright, bouncy tune? That would be the Cyrkle. But before they hit the big time, they were known as the Rondells, cutting their teeth on the college circuit with a frat rock vibe. They played campus parties and small gigs, gradually building a sound that mixed folk, pop, and rock. But everything changed after a chance meeting with John Lennon. He liked their music so much, he gave them a new name, the Cyrkle, spelled with a twist to match their unique style and tight musical chemistry. Their breakout moment came in 1966 with Red Rubber Ball, written by none other than Paul Simon. With its upbeat rhythm and lyrics about bouncing back from heartbreak, it struck a chord with listeners and soared to #2 on the Billboard charts. Just like that, the Cyrkle became one of the most talked about new acts of the year. Their success earned them a once-in-a-lifetime spot opening for the Beatles on their 1966 summer tour across America. Night after night, they played to packed stadiums full of screaming fans, rubbing shoulders with the biggest band in the world. It was a whirlwind and a huge boost to their profile. They even dabbled in Hollywood, appearing in the 1968 film The Miniskirt Mob, and contributing to the soundtrack. It was another sign of just how versatile they were, expanding their reach beyond the stage. Their later singles didn't hit the same heights, and by 1968, the Cyrkle had quietly disbanded. Still, for a brief shining moment, they captured the sound and the spirit of the 60s. Mia Daughters EM. Back in 1969, a little-known group out of Florida struck gold with a song that just felt like sunshine. The band was called Mercy, and their breakthrough hit was Love Can Make You Happy. Written by lead singer and founder Jack Sigler Jr., the song had an uplifting beat, a sweet melody, and lyrics that hit home about love's power to lift you up. It wasn't just catchy, it was contagious. The track quickly took off, climbing all the way to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 2 on the Adult Contemporary chart. That kind of success wasn't easy to come by, and Mercy walked away with a gold record for their efforts. A true pop gem that helped define the sound of 1969. Now, while they did release more music, nothing quite matched the success of that one magical hit. But Mercy didn't fade into history like so many others from the era. In fact, they're still going strong. Jack Sigler Jr. continues to lead the group, keeping their music alive on stage for longtime fans and newcomers alike. Fo.rdzex, Erend Eyas Diesel. Ever hear of a South African band making waves on the US charts in the 60s? That would be 4 Jacks and a Jill. Their story starts in 1964 when they were first known as the Nevadas. Back then, they stirred things up just by having long hair, a bold move in South Africa at the time. After a short run under the name The Zombies, not to be confused with the British band, they brought in vocalist Glennis Lynn and became 4 Jacks and a Jill. Their big break came with Master Jack, a haunting and memorable tune that cracked the US Billboard Hot 100, peaking at number 18, and soared to number 3 on the Adult Contemporary chart. But the song didn't just take off in America, it became a global hit, topping charts in countries like South Africa, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, and even Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. Although Master Jack was their one major international success, 4 Jacks and a Jill remained popular at home, turning out more hits in South Africa. But they didn't stop at just music. They also recorded a series of educational storybook albums for local charities, leaving behind a legacy that went beyond the stage. The Outsiders. Ever catch yourself humming Time Won't Let Me and wonder who made that classic? That would be The Outsiders, a rock group out of Cleveland, Ohio, who made a splash in 1966. Led by guitarist Tom King, the band hit it big right out of the gate with Time Won't Let Me, which shot up to number 5 on the US charts that April. It quickly became their calling card. They kept the momentum going for a while, landing 3 more top 40 hits that same year, and putting out 4 albums through the mid-60s. But as promising as things looked, trouble was never far behind. One of their biggest missteps? Passing on a song called Bend Me, Shape Me. The American Breed picked it up instead and turned it into a huge hit. From there, things got rocky. The band went through frequent lineup changes, and behind-the-scenes issues with producers didn't help either. By 1970, the hits had dried up, and none of their later singles even cracked the top 100. Eventually, the group called it quits. Tzimi Gilmer Hand die Fireball.lz. Long before they were topping charts, the Fireballs were tearing it up as an instrumental rock group in the late 50s. With their roots in New Mexico, they built a name for themselves, mixing rockabilly, surf rock, and just a bit of country flair. They earned fans the old-fashioned way, gig by gig, note by note. But everything changed when Jimmy Gilmer joined the lineup. With Gilmer's smooth vocals and undeniable charm, the group rebranded as Jimmy Gilmer and the Fireballs. Then, in 1963, they dropped a track that would skyrocket them to fame, Sugar Shack. With its catchy beat, youthful lyrics, and toe-tapping rhythm, the song took off like wildfire. It ruled the Billboard Hot 100 for 5 weeks and even climbed to number 1 on the R&B chart. An impressive crossover success. Sugar Shack didn't just sell, it soared. It earned a gold record and was named the top-selling song of 1963. Its feel-good energy made it the anthem of teen dance halls and jukeboxes across the country. Hoping to keep the momentum going, they followed up with Daisy Pedal Pickin' in 1964. While it didn't hit quite as hard, it still reached number 15 on the charts, proving they weren't just a one-hit wonder, at least not yet. Which of these forgotten gems brought back memories for you? Did we leave out a favorite? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories from music's golden past. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.